We are ready to go. All right, let's do it. Now, I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm not much of a fighter. Truth be told, never been in a real fight before. More truth be told, I've never thrown an actual punch before. Not a punch with any sort of significance behind it. In that same vein, and probably a positive from that vein, I've never actually taken a punch with any sort of significance behind it either. Come on, that's not a bad way to look at things, you know? But doesn't mean I'm not ready. You know what I'm saying? Like, doesn't mean I don't know. Sometimes you got to put them on, lace them up. And then you got to, Michael, you know this, power comes from the hip. It's in the hip. It's not in the punch. It's in the power. Y'all aren't buying it. I get it. That's okay. No, that's okay. Now, I know. I've never taken a punch. I've never given a punch. I don't know what that actually feels like physically, but it doesn't mean I've never experienced the pain of a gut punch that life has a tricky way of throwing at us from time to time. Can I have a better amen from anybody who's living a real life in the real world? Yeah? We all know what that feels like. None of us are immune to those punches. But you know what's interesting about those life gut punches? It's pop, pop, boom. And it's in the power. It's in the hip, right? I'm making that up for real. I don't know. But you know what's interesting about those punches is that while it's happening around us physically, the impact that it has on us is more spiritual than physical. The circumstances are happening around us physically, but the impact it's having is on the spiritual life that we're living. It's not on the person that we are, it's on the person that we are becoming. Like, for example, when we lose a loved one. Pop, pop. That hurts, right? But well, what's the question, or what's the statement is, well, God, we prayed for them to be healed, and they're still not here. Felt that one? Maybe we get let go from work. Well, God, I wasn't expecting that. How are we going to put food on the table? That stack of bills isn't getting any shorter. You mean I have to go back on Indeed.com and try and find a new job? Here it goes again. When that relationship that we had, that promises were made and promises were broken, the marriage didn't make it. Everybody okay? God, now I'm here, but I'm all alone. Gut punch. Jab, jab. Boom. That's life. Today, what I want to teach you, I want to give you a real reality check when it comes to the life that we live as followers of Jesus. Is that okay? And what we're going to do today is we're going to take a Hollywood illustrated but heavenly inspired message straight from the heart of God that's going to teach you about the fights in your life. And the takeaway that I want you guys to have from this message is that when it comes to the fights in your life, the most significant fights that you fight are spiritual. They're not physical. Okay? They're spiritual fights. They're not physical fights. And to help us see this picture played out, we're going to turn to the third installment of the blockbuster franchise, Creed 3. Come on, anybody seen Creed? The Creeds, there's 3 of them. That's why this one's called Creed 3. It's kind of like 2 Thessalonians. It's because there's 2 of them. It all works the same. In case you don't know this about this movie, there's boxing in it. Hopefully, by as many times as I've talked about punching and fighting. Oh, and these boxing gloves that I was wearing, hopefully that was kind of a hint that that's the direction that we were going. But I do want to give you a heads up that if you or anyone who's with you might have a problem with boxing scenes of actors doing choreographed fake fighting with real looking but fake makeup blood on them, okay? Like you're going to be Just prepare yourself. If you do need to step out once the lights go dark, feel free to step out, grab a coffee, grab a Coke, grab some popcorn, get you something from the merch shelves. Tell them Tyler sent you. They'll make you a great deal, all right? But feel no shame if you want to step out. But what we're going to do today is we're going to lean in to our feature presentation, week 1 of StoryHeights Cinemas, and see what God has to teach us straight from Hollywood, all right? Why don't you check out clip number 1. It's pretty good, huh? I didn't want to be the only one not eating popcorn. Problem is, I'm eating popcorn, but I still got to talk for like 20 more minutes, so this could become an issue. Adonis Creed, man. That's Apollo's kid. You know what I mean? Like, he's ready to fight. Heavyweight champion of the world. Heavyweight champion of the world. Did you hear Adonis call his shot, though? Did y'all hear him? He came off, he's smiling. And Duke says, "Why are you smiling?" What does he tell him? Checkmate. Checkmate. Why did he call it checkmate? It's because he observed a weakness in his opponent. He was studying his opponent during the fight. This first takeaway I have for you for your life and the most significant fights that you fight in your life is in order to win the fight, you've got to understand your opponent. You got to know who you're fighting against. That's what Paul says in Ephesians 6. It says, "Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to take a stand against the schemes of the devil. For we do not wrestle. We do not box. We do not tussle," right, "against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places." What's Paul telling us here? What's Paul warning us here? We've got to know our opponent. We've got to understand our opponent. And who does he tell us our opponent is? It is not a physical opponent that is right in front of us. It is a spiritual opponent that is everywhere around us. And if that's the truth, and I believe that it is, can I ask an important question? Why in the world do we spend so much time in our lives trying to fight a spiritual opponent with physical weapons? You ever thought about that? Why do we throw everything we can muster up at these fights, these problems, these issues, these circumstances, these gut punches that show themselves in our lives? Why do we throw everything we've got at them when we know that everything we've got is not the answer? We try to find physical solutions to spiritual battles. You ever heard the expression, "Don't bring a knife to a gunfight"? Y'all ever heard that before? There's a lot of weapons in that statement, a little violent, but it's okay. The point is still true, right? Why are you going to show up with the wrong weapons to the wrong battle? For example, when you take one of those spiritual gut punches, whatever it may look like, all right? Can I just ask you, why are you calling your sister? I may not know your sister, but I don't know why you're calling her. Why are you going to try and talk to her first before you ever talk to Jesus? Physical solution to a spiritual problem. When life gives you one of those spiritual right hooks, man, you know what I'm talking about? One of those big power, bring the pain sort of right hooks. Why are you going to go on Google and search for what some blogger wrote about it 2 years ago? Instead of going to the timeless, infallible, unchanging, written voice of God that already has all the answers you're Googling for anyway. You're looking for physical solutions to a spiritual problem. When you get another one of those pesky little jabs to the chin, a little pop before the boom, you know what I'm talking about? Why are you going to go to places where you can drown your sorrows and avoid the place where the presence of the one who can take your sorrows away is kept? Spiritual battles, not physical battles. And if you're going to be victorious in these battles, you got to understand your opponent. That's takeaway number one. Let's check out the second clip today, and we'll see what takeaway number two is. The drama builds. The suspense continues. This is the part of the movie where you're nervous eating popcorn now. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Second takeaway we have from Creed 3 is that the enemy's distractions can lead to your destruction. That is good. Thank you, John. The enemy's distractions can lead to your destruction. Did you catch that line that Adonis's mom said, which, first of all, I thought it was cool. Grown man, heavyweight champion of the world, still got his mom in his phone as mama. Come on, somebody. You know what I'm talking about? But did you catch what Mrs. Huxtable told Adonis? Did y'all hear it? She said, you can't see your vision. You can't see it. You are distracted. There may be a time when Damien had your back, but that's not what he's doing now. And the scene where Damien and Adonis are working it out on the beach, that's the tension of the movie right there. That's where everything that Adonis had worked for, everything that Adonis had built, everything that Adonis had done, both for himself and for Damien, it all came crumbling down right there in that moment. Right there in that moment. Can I tell you what I've learned in my life? And again, I don't have everyone's experience, but I do have my own. What I've learned in my life, what I'm confident of in my life, is that my enemy, my opponent, I don't think he's going to catch me in some sort of crazy sin situation to try and ruin my life. I don't believe so. I don't say that arrogantly. I just say that confidently because I know who I am as a child of God. I know who God created me. I know what God has called me to do. And God has given me an amazing partner and teammate and wife to keep my behind in line. Come on, somebody. I don't think God's going to catch me in some sort of crazy, the devil's going to catch me in some sort of crazy sin moment. I'm confident in that, but I'm also confident that the devil believes that if he can just get me distracted from what it is that God has called me to, that he can keep me from what God has promised me to have. The devil knows that if he can distract me, he can destroy me. And whether it's some crazy sin moment or just getting off track from what God has called me to do and where God has called me to be, the devil has still accomplished his goal. You guys with me? Yeah. Have you ever heard that expression, he's just at the wrong place at the wrong time? Y'all ever heard that? I hate that expression. I think it's the biggest joke, for real. Can I just be for real for a second? I think it's the biggest joke, especially if you're a child of God. If you're a son of God, a daughter of the King, listen to me. That is the biggest joke. Don't ever make that excuse for yourself. I do not believe that a God who has ordained our steps, a God that is sovereign in all things, a God that knew our beginning and our end before either of them started, I do not believe that a child of God can ever find themselves somehow coincidentally in the wrong place at the wrong time. I don't believe that that's possible. But what I know is possible is that a child of God may not just end up in the wrong place at the wrong time, but a child of God can get distracted from his or her purpose or calling. And that a child of God can wander from the path that God has laid out for him or her to follow. And that a child of God can end up in a place where everything is crumbling around them. Why? Not because of some coincidence, but because they got distracted from the mission that God had put them on. A distracted child of God can lead to a destructed child of God. And we got to be on guard for that, church. We got to be on guard. The most significant fights you'll fight, they're spiritual. They're not physical. And if the enemy can get you distracted, the enemy can get you destructed. Okay? Let's watch the third clip, and then we'll wrap this sermon up and get you guys out of here onto whatever you got next today. Check. the setup for the dramatic ending. And it is a dramatic ending, and I'm going to spoil it for you right now. Creed wins. I mean, come on. The music changed, the whole speech by Duke. Like, this is Hollywood. They're not doing originals anymore. It's all been done before, right? Like, we all knew it's the direction it was going. But did you catch the scene? This is the 11th round of 12. There's one round left of this epic fight between heavyweight champs. And both of them, after they work through the flashback montage of their history, they both end up exhausted before Duke gives his speech to do what? To let it all go. To let it all go. I don't know if you caught that, but did you catch what the announcer said? Did you hear what he said? He said, there's history that's spilling into the ring. Did you catch that? He says this, he goes, what an emotionally draining war here in Los Angeles. Now, I thought that was weird. That was a weird way to describe the scene that we all just now watched, with literally two heavyweight champions, heavyweight boxing champions, slugging it out for 3 minutes, right? To describe that scene as emotionally draining. First time I watched that scene, Taiwo, I had to get a Gatorade and a sauna. I was done. Just watching it about did me in, man. And he's going to describe this as emotionally draining. Isn't that the way that it goes, though? When life comes at us with everything that it's got, yeah, we experience it physically, but what happens? We really feel it where? In our spirit. It drains our emotions. It drains our souls. But when we stay focused on the pain in our past, we're making the conscientious choice to put our futures at risk. That's the third takeaway, that keeping focused on your past keeps your future at risk. That's why Paul told the church in Philippi, he said this, he said, stay focused on what lies ahead. Not on what's behind you. Stay focused on what lies ahead. Paul says, I press on towards the what? Towards the finish line. I don't do much running, but I know that when you run towards the finish line, you run forward. You don't run backwards. When you press ahead towards the finish line, your eyes are forward. They're not backward. When you're focused on what's behind you, listen to me, when you keep your focus there, you keep what's ahead of you at risk. And not only can you miss out on what's now, you're also putting at risk what God has next. So I encourage you this morning, when life comes at you and starts throwing those punches, because you know they're coming. They may be coming right now. You may have walked into church this morning in the parking lot, put your church face on, knowing full well that there's a round 12 waiting on you when you walk outside those doors. But when life comes at you with those punches, I want to encourage you in this. Don't let those punches and the pain of right now turn your attention to what was behind. Lean into those punches and keep your focus fixed on what God has ahead of you. You understand what I'm saying? The most significant fight you fight in this life, it's a spiritual one. It's not a physical one. And when we wrap our brains around that, listen to me, we're prepared for the battle and the battles that come our way, right? And it's important to me that you're prepared. It's important to me, Francis, that you understand, right? Spiritual fights, not physical fights. But it's also important to me that you know how to win. Come on, somebody. I may not have ever taken a punch before, but I still know how to win. You know what I mean? Come on. I'd like to think that if push came to shove, I could get in there. You know what I'm saying? Like, if somebody was coming at me, I'd be like, nah, sit down, you know? I'd probably just be like, hey, can we just talk about this for a second? Yeah. All right, but anyway, I'm going to teach you how to win. Teach you how to win, okay? Taylor, you'll like this. You know what I'm talking about, Taylor, right here. So when it comes to, okay, so spiritual fights, not physical fights, but it's all in it's in your position, it's in your posture. You got to get in your power. Power comes from the hip. Stephen, you know what I'm talking about? They taught this in the Air Force, didn't they? Like, it's all right here, okay? So when you're ready, you got to get down. Okay, so like life's coming. He's coming with the punches. You've taken some some shots here and there, but you're all right because we're about to win this. You want to know how you win? You're in the ring. You're in the fight. It's coming at you. It's as real can be. And it's, listen, here it comes. This is the secret. This is how you win this fight. You watching? You got to get here. Then you got to do this. You got to take the gloves off. Step out of the ring. Because you are quite literally fighting a battle that has already been won. The victory is not yours. The victory is the Lord's. We don't raise a victory banner in the name of our problems. We don't raise a victory banner in the name of our family. We don't raise a victory banner in the name of our desires, our plans, our purposes, our intentions. We raise a victory banner in the name of our God. Why? Because that's His name. His name is victory. The battle has been fought. The battle has been won. Why are we spending so much of ourselves fighting a battle that we already have the victory over? Oh my gosh. Help us, Lord. Help us, Lord. Lord, give us the faith, God, not to become better fighters, but give us faith, God, to take the gloves off and step out of the ring. Because you are our victory, Jesus. You and you alone. We don't know what you're doing, God, but we know what you've done. So help us to stop fighting a battle, God, that you've already won.